You and I live in a world where systems are supposed to protect us. Sensors, alarms, protocols. But what happens when those systems expect you to be passive and you've been raised to be useful? I've always been fascinated by that tension. Are you cargo to be kept safe, or are you part of the safety net itself? So instead of replaying your day, let your mind wander to a quiet station hanging at the edge of a blue nebula, where safety has been engineered to perfection. Get comfortable, because in that place, a human girl named Paige Turner arrives from rainy Earth with a very inconvenient habit. She's been trained to help, while Meridian Collegium teaches that the safest hands are the ones that never touch a hazard. Paige carries a different rule from home. If a person can safely help, they should. And on a station that believes students must never interfere, her calm, practical way of treating risk is about to meet a culture built on staying out of the way. The station hung at the edge of a soft blue nebula, turning very slowly, safe inside a net of quiet machines. Every corridor was smooth and clean. Every door knew when to close and lock. Every classroom promised that nothing truly bad could happen. Most students loved that promise. Paige Turner did not hate it, but it did not feel complete to her. Back on Earth, in a green city full of rain and mountain air, safety had never meant hiding from every sharp edge. It had meant knowing how to use gear, learning how to fall, learning how to help. On Meridian Collegium, safety meant something else. In the most famous course on the station, Safety and Compliance Fundamentals, students were told that the safest hands were hands that did not touch any hazard at all. Paige had not come all this way to argue. She had come to listen, to learn, and to prove that humans were not just chaos and bad surprises. But during the first training lab, standing in fake smoke under soft red lights, she felt her muscles tense with that old Earth habit. Do something small and careful, her instincts said. Do not just stand there and watch a simple problem get worse. On Meridian, trouble was supposed to be left to systems and officers. On Earth, Paige had been taught a quiet rule: if a person can safely help, they should. Some had lived in long water tunnels under ice. Some, like Paige Turner, came from a planet full of wind, ocean, and trees. Paige stood in the arrival hall, hands on the straps of her small pack, and watched the flow of students being sorted into different learning streams. Around her moved tall, scaled figures with slow eyes, tiny, many-armed students riding in floating chairs, and others she could not yet name. Above them, soft lights shifted to show time in long, gentle waves. Her group had been directed toward safety and compliance fundamentals, which many older students had called the easiest class in the galaxy. The rumor was that if a student stayed quiet and followed the rules, a passing grade was almost guaranteed. That sounded fine to Paige, at least at first. Somewhere between those two ideas, in a bright classroom, wrapped in glass and gentle gravity, something new was about to grow. Meridian Collegium floated, where the light from a nearby star thinned into a blue haze. From the outside, it looked like a slow-turning ring wrapped around a clear central spine. From the inside, it felt like a city that had never once panicked. Air moved in soft currents. Gravity settled a little lighter than Earth. Like a constant small kindness. For most of the young beings who came here, Meridian was the first time away from home. Some had grown up under heavy gravity on rocky moons. She did not like failing, and she did not enjoy risk for its own sake. Back in Portland, what she enjoyed was the feeling of being prepared. She liked packing for long hikes, checking ropes twice, reading storm forecasts, and running drills where every neighbor knew their job if the river rose. Her parents had raised her with a simple idea. Life held risk, no matter what anyone did. Prepared people did not make that risk disappear, but they could change how much it hurt others. Now she followed a bright blue guide light along a corridor that curved gently. Her steps felt just a little too long in the light gravity. Her dark hair floated around her shoulders, almost as if she moved underwater. She pressed it back behind her ears and steadied her breathing. The door to the classroom opened with a soft rush. Inside, the room was wide, with desks arranged in a loose circle rather than in rows. Transparent walls showed the dim glow of the nebula outside, a soft haze that seemed very far away and very harmless. At the center stood Officer Instructor Hale Veer. Hale was tall even for his species, with a smooth, pale hide that shifted faintly in color when he moved. His eyes were long and narrow, set deep under a ridge of bone. A faint hum seemed to follow him, the sign of the tiny devices linked to his station access and safety systems. He moved with the calm of someone who trusted those systems more than he trusted any living person. "Take your seats," he said, in a voice that carried without effort. Paige sat near the middle of the circle, placing her slate on the desk and pulling out a slim paper notebook as well. A few nearby students watched the paper with curiosity, but said nothing. She clicked her pen once and rested it on the page. Hale let his gaze pass over them, counting without moving his lips. When he reached Paige, his eyes paused for a breath. He had read her file. Human, Earth origin, Portland, Pacific Northwest arcology. High scores in emergency drills, strong record in volunteer response teams. No recorded discipline problems. Humans, in his experience, tended to bring surprises. This one looked quiet and orderly, which he found somewhat comforting. He watched the way she already had her tools arranged, the way her shoulders stayed level even in lower gravity. She did not fidget or swing her feet. Maybe, he thought, she would adapt to the station's way of thinking without trouble. This course Hale began exists for a simple purpose: to keep you from becoming a hazard. A few students shifted uneasily at that. Most of you, he went on, have already passed basic habitat safety at your home institutions. You know how to read levels. You know how to seal a compartment if a leak forms. You know how to follow an exit route without panic. Here we take that knowledge and fix it into habit. Here we remove improvisation. He let the last word sit in the air. On Meridian, he said, the safest action in the presence of danger is usually no action. You are here to learn when to step back, when to lock down, and when to call for trained responders. You are not here to solve the problem yourself. The systems and officers do that. Paige's pen moved across her page. She wrote down his key phrases. Safest action is no action. Remove improvisation, systems and officers solve problems. She did not argue with the words. In her Portland training, students were given a similar idea with different details. Do not become the second emergency. However, they were also taught small steps that could safely reduce harm while waiting for help. Hale brought up short case summaries, an air leak on a mining station, where a student tried to patch the breach and was lost with the escaping air. A chemical spill on a lab ring where an untrained assistant tried to override a seal and spread contamination to 2 more decks. A power failure on a moon habitat where frightened residents tried to move life support units by hand and disconnected them by mistake. In each case, Hale said, the system was designed to protect. In each case, an untrained hand made things worse. Safety means no surprises, no heroics, no unscheduled interventions. You will learn to be predictable, and you will live longer because of it. Around the room, students nodded. A scaled being with dark blue eyes raised a hand. Officer instructor, they asked, are there any circumstances where we are expected to act directly on a hazard? Hale's gaze warmed slightly. He liked clear questions. You are expected, he said, to act on yourselves and your peers. You remove yourselves from danger. You assist others to withdraw. You close doors. You report. You do not touch the hazard. That is the rule. We call this the Avoidance Model. It has kept this station's casualty numbers at the lowest level in the sector. Paige wrote Avoidance Model on her page and circled it. Her mind brought up a memory of standing on a wet riverbank with her rescue club, learning how to throw a flotation line to someone in the water without falling in herself. Pull them in without going in, her coach had said. Help, but stay safe. Hale moved into the outline of the course. The first weeks would be lectures and simple tests. Then would come time in the hazard lab, where controlled simulations would teach them to recognize warning signs and lock areas down. There would be no contact with real uncontrolled danger. Every sim would be monitored. Every variable had been analyzed in depth. As he spoke, Paige's breathing slowed. There was something soothing about his faith in the systems. She knew, from reading before she came, that Meridian had almost no history of serious accidents. Every emergency on record had ended in what the reports called containment, without loss of life. The part of her that liked control respected that. The part of her that had spent rainy autumn evenings helping to set up community evacuation plans felt something else. It felt a little gap right at the edge of all that order. Hale brought the first lecture to a close with a simple rule. If you remember nothing else from today, he said, remember this. You are not the system. You are the subject that the system protects. Stay inside your role, and you will stay alive. He dismissed them for a short break before the next lesson segment. As the class stood and stretched, Paige stayed seated for a moment, reading her notes. The phrase kept tugging at her. You are not the system. In Portland, during neighborhood response drills, instructors had often said the opposite in a mild way. They had said that in a disaster, people were part of the system. People were the hands and feet that helped the plans work. She raised her hand just as Hale turned toward the console to adjust the next set of learning materials. He paused. "Yes, Cadet Turner?" Several students glanced her way. Hale knew her name already. He had studied the roster. His tone held a polite curiosity, but also a quiet caution. Paige met his gaze. "Sir," she said, her voice calm and even. "What if you are the system?" Silence settled over the room. The question did not sound rude or sharp. It sounded truly curious, as if she saw some missing puzzle piece and wanted to fit it in place. Hale's skin shifted to a slightly cooler shade. "Explain," he said. "If the automatic systems fail," Paige said, "and trained responders are far away, and you have training in some part of the problem, then who is the system? If the protocol depends on someone at this location to act, does that person become part of the system?" Hale's jaw tightened, almost invisibly. He was used to questions about odd details in rules, not about the shape of the rules themselves. "The automatic systems on Meridian have multiple backups," he said. "Total failure is extremely unlikely. If there is a gap, it is closed by officers trained for that exact gap. Students are never required to act beyond withdrawal and reporting. That is how this station is designed." Paige listened and nodded slowly. "Thank you," she said. He heard no anger in it. He also heard no full agreement. Something in his chest felt a faint unease, as if a tiny sensor had caught a reading that did not match the chart. "We will discuss systems and roles in more detail during our hazard lab orientation," he added in a slightly firmer tone. "For now, accept that your safety lies in non-engagement." "Yes, sir," Paige said. She lowered her hand and closed her notebook for the break. Around her, small conversations rose as students drifted toward the room's side tables for water and snacks suited to many species. A short, bright-eyed cadet with soft gray fur on their face leaned over. "I liked your question," they said quietly. "I am Mira Jas. My home station has fewer systems. We have to do more by hand." Paige smiled. "I am Paige," she said. "Back home we did a lot by hand too, with gear and drills, but still by hand." Mira's ears flicked with interest. "Maybe Meridian could use some of that," they said softly. Then glanced at Hale's back and gave a small, quick grin. "Or maybe not. We will see." Paige looked out at the soft nebula light beyond the clear wall again. She wondered how this place would feel in a real emergency, with the sirens low and steady and the air moving differently. She wondered what it would feel like to be told to sit still if she could see a simple, safe action that might help. Around her, the station hummed in its careful, almost perfect balance. Somewhere deep inside that balance, a new idea had just been spoken aloud, and it did not fully fit the old shape. Hale turned back to the class, pushing the faint worry from his mind. The rules worked. The systems worked. This was, after all, the easiest class in the galaxy. What trouble could a quiet human question really cause? The hazard lab sat in a ring just inside Meridian's outer hall. It was one of the few places on the station where things were designed to go wrong on purpose. From the outside corridor, It looked like any other sealed training zone. Inside, it held sections that could become smoke-filled corridors, leaking valves, darkened power rooms, or low-pressure habitats, all under tight control. Paige arrived early for the first lab session, her heart steady but alert. This was the part of the course she had looked forward to. Back on Earth, most of her training had been in spaces like this, except those had been old-school gyms, community centers, and riverbanks. Here, the walls curved with ship-grade alloys, and the ceiling carried more wiring than she could name. Mira Jas joined her in the small waiting area outside the lab doors. Mira's gray fur was brushed back neatly, and they had a small device clipped to their collar that translated subtle sounds from their native language into standard when needed. Ready to not touch anything? Mira joked aloud, eyes bright. Paige smiled. Ready to learn where the lines are, she said. Hale arrived just then, his presence smoothing the air somehow. He carried a control unit on his wrist that linked him directly to the simulation systems. A pair of safety technicians followed, their eyes watchful, their hands resting near emergency overrides. Today, Hale said, once the full group had gathered, you will meet controlled hazards. They are very weak and very limited. They cannot hurt you. They exist so that you may practice correct non-engagement while your stress rises slightly. Bull, of your stress rises slightly. He led them through the doors into the main staging area. From there, secondary doors led into different compartments, each set up for a certain scenario. Above each door, small lights glowed in different colors to show the type of sim inside. Each team will enter a compartment and wait, Hale explained. I will trigger a minor system fault. You will move away from the hazard, secure yourselves, assist any classmates who have difficulty, and communicate with command through the channel in your gear. You will not attempt to fix, patch, shut down, or otherwise interact with the fault. You will let the system and the supervisors do that. He looked around the group. If you are unsure whether an action counts as engagement, do nothing. Doing nothing is safer. Paige listened, her mind running through the steps. Move away. Secure. Assist others. Communicate. Those all made sense. The part that felt different to her was the last line. If unsure, do nothing. Her Portland guidelines had been more like, if unsure, choose the smaller safe action that clearly makes no new risk. Still, she kept her doubts quiet. There was no point in arguing before she saw how the sims actually worked. Teams of 3 were assigned to compartments. Paige found herself grouped with Mira and a tall, soft-spoken student named Ral, whose skin glimmered faintly with a natural bioluminescence. Ral came from a deep-sea world, and the bright lights of Meridian often made them squint. The door slid open, and the 3 of them stepped into their first sim room. It looked like a small cargo bay, with crates fixed to the floor and walls. The air felt normal. The gravity was the same as the rest of the station. Paige scanned the room without moving too fast, the way her Earth trainers had taught her. Doors, vents, possible trip points, nearest safe corner, She noted everything but kept her hands at her sides. The door closed behind them with a firm sigh. Hale's voice came over their earpieces. Scenario start in 3, 2, 1. At first, nothing happened. Then a faint white mist began to thinly stream from a pipe along the far wall. It curled into the air like breath on a cold day, then spread along the ceiling. "Vapor leak detected," said a calm automatic voice in their gear. "Recommend withdrawal and shelter." "Notify command." Rel flinched back toward the door. Mira grabbed their arm gently and guided them toward a low barrier near the center of the room. "Back from the leak," Mira said. "Stay low. Paige, call it in." "Copy," Paige said. She touched the side of her earpiece and spoke clearly. "Team 3 in cargo sim. We are withdrawing to the center barrier, awaiting instructions." She had done almost that same thing in Portland, except then it had been an old boiler room in a school full of steam and the smell of hot metal. In that drill, after they had pulled back, she had been the one told to move to the panel and switch off the failing valve. Here she stayed put. The mist curled toward a vent near the ceiling and started to thin as the sim's automatic systems drew it away. Somewhere behind the wall, a control program was fixing the leak. "Very good," came Hale's voice. "You did not approach. You did not attempt to block or redirect the leak. You withdrew and reported." "That is correct action." Paige looked up at the vent, watching how the air pulled the mist. Her mind drew a quick line from vent to leak. She could see, as clearly as if it were printed, that if this had been a little worse, a person standing in the right spot could have helped the vent do its job faster with a simple barrier, without touching the leaking pipe at all. Her hand stayed on the barrier rail. She did not move. The sim ended. They cycled through more compartments. One by one, in the next, the lights dimmed and a soft alarm tone sounded, while an indicator on the wall changed color. The air felt the same, but their gear announced a mild decrease in oxygen level. "Low oxygen event," the calm voice said. "Recommend reduced activity. Move to designated safe zone. Notify command." They walked, not ran, to a marked safe zone. In the corner, Rel's breathing picked up with nerves, and Mira placed a steady hand on their shoulder, guiding them to sit on a bench. Paige called in the event. In her Earth training, this would have been the moment to check any nearby portable oxygen units, to pull them closer, to make sure that the most fragile people had access first. It would also have been a chance to crack a reference guide and confirm how fast the level was falling, and whether anyone needed to do more than sit quietly. Here, the only allowed steps were to gather and wait again. The sim corrected itself. Vents adjusted. Levels returned to normal. Lights grew brighter. "Good," Hale said afterward, in the debrief. "You did not strain yourselves. You did not attempt to access emergency equipment without cause. You trusted the systems. Some of you looked toward the manual supply lockers. That was not required. In a real event, those lockers would be unlocked only by authorized officers." Paige kept her face neutral. Her pen moved over her notebook during the debrief, recording what he praised and what he corrected. Held in the margin, she drew a small question mark next to "do not access emergency equipment without cause." Her Earth habits tugged at her again. On Earth, simply making sure equipment was within easy reach was considered smart, not reckless. The third sim put them in a narrow corridor with smooth floors. As they walked, the center of the floor suddenly became slick with clear gel. Rel's foot slipped, and they nearly went down, but Mira caught them. Surface traction failure. The gear voice said, "Recommend immediate halt. Await assistance. Notify command." "Everyone just freeze," Mira said, steady but firm. They did. The gel shone under the light, thin but enough to make every step unsafe. Paige could picture exactly how easy it would be to drop to hands and knees and crawl to the wall where the floor still looked dry. From there, they could guide each other slowly to the nearest door. Instead, she stayed still. "This feels strange," Rel muttered softly. "My body wants to move off the slick part." "I know," Paige said gently. "But if falling is worse than waiting, we wait." She did not add that in some drills on Earth, getting clear of a slipping zone had been part of the lesson. Here, the lab could shut off the gel at any moment. Real systems watched their vitals. There was no true danger. Still, a sense of unspent action rested in her muscles, like a deep breath held in the chest. During the break between sims, students shared reactions in low voices. Some laughed, saying it had been silly to stand so still on a fake, slippery floor. Others said that practicing stillness had actually been hard. They had grown up in stations where family members handled small problems by hand all the time. Hale listened and corrected where he felt he must. In a modern facility, he said, most small hazards are signs of larger system changes. Interacting with a small sign can disrupt automatic responses meant for the bigger issue. You are trained to stay clear, not to meddle. The word meddle made Paige's shoulders tighten for a second. On Earth, good training was the difference between meddling and helping. She let her breath go slowly and asked herself the question she always did when she felt tension. What is actually true here? What do we know? They knew that Meridian systems were advanced. They knew that Sims were under full control. They knew the rules. All of that was real. What was also real was the fact that in any complex place, someday something would fail in a way no one had planned. The fourth Sim shifted things. Their team entered a compartment meant to look like a small control hub. Panels lined the walls, some glowing, some dark. Some glowing, some dark. A central table held a map of environmental zones on a flat display. The three of them stood waiting for the scenario to begin. When it did, the lights flickered, then dimmed to half. A low hum faltered in the walls. The air felt heavier. "Partial power loss," said the calm voice. "Recommend reduced activity. Relocate to designated muster point. Notify command. Do not attempt system resets." Paige's eyes moved to a small manual light near the door. A battery lantern, probably real, not simulated. In a real power loss, grabbing that light and bringing it to the central table would be a sensible step. It would help everyone see each other's faces, keep people calm, make it easier to move if needed. Her hand twitched toward it, then stopped. She pictured Hale's words, "If unsure, do nothing." Mira saw her glance and gave a tiny shrug. "We should probably just gather at the muster point," they said. Paige nodded, and they did. She reported in. The hum in the walls strengthened again. Lights returned to normal. During the debrief, Hale praised them for not touching any controls or emergency gear. "Some of you were tempted to activate secondary lighting," he said. "That would not have been harmful in this case, but it was not required. When you are not trained, even turning on a light can send signals that confuse automated responses. Your best action is often to stay put and let the systems interpret their own inputs without interference." Mira raised their hand. "Officer Instructor," they said, "on my home station, we had to handle power dips by hand. The systems did not always interpret things right. We had a rule that the nearest calm person lit a backup and read the manual. Is that always dangerous here? No system is perfect," Hale said. "But meridians are far beyond what most of you have used. Human-level manual intervention is a last resort only. We teach you not to expect it and not to assume you are the right person to do it." Paige listened closely, trying to understand the feeling behind his words. It was not only about control, it was about pattern. He wanted students to form a habit so strong that in a real scare, they would not try anything unexpected. The tension built slowly over the next few sessions. Each sim put them near a mild hazard and taught them to withdraw, wait, and report. Each time, Paige could see tiny safe actions that might make things better without serious risk. She kept seeing chances to slide a barrier closer to a leak, to pull oxygen canisters within reach, to crack open a paper manual and prep for when the real responders arrived. Hale saw only the long shadow of a student trying to be a hero and dying under a falling beam. Mira began to notice the same things Paige did. After a sim where a hatch jammed halfway and locked, leaving them standing in a corridor waiting for a soft mechanical release, Mira leaned close. "You saw the manual release handle, right?" they said under their breath as they walked back to the staging area. "Yes," Paige said quietly. "I saw it. And you know how to use one?" Mira asked. "In theory," Paige answered. "We practiced on Earth. You lock your stance, check pressure readings, then pull steadily. But the rules here say wait." Mira's ears flattened a little. "Waiting while a door is stuck feels wrong," they said. "It depends what is on the other side." Paige said, "If you do not know, sometimes waiting is safer." They both fell silent as Hale approached. "Team 3, he said, "you complied well. I did notice both of you looking toward the manual release. Curiosity is normal, but in a real event, that curiosity could lead to interference." "Yes, sir," Paige said respectfully. "We did not touch it." "I know," Hale replied. "Keep your focus on withdrawal and reporting. Leave the systems to those who are meant to handle them." After he walked away, Mira exhaled slowly. Does he think we are going to throw ourselves at every broken thing we see? They asked. I think he has seen people do that, Paige said gently. Maybe more than we know. They moved to the side bench and sat while the next teams took their turns. Paige opened her notebook and wrote a small phrase in the corner of a page. Managed engagement. She had brought the idea with her from Earth, even if she had not said it out loud yet. To her, managed engagement meant that risk was not only something to escape and fear, it was something to practice with, carefully, so that in the rare moment when systems failed and responders were far, people could do a little good instead of only waiting. As the hazard lab cycles continued, some of the other cadets began to pick up on Paige's quiet patterns. She always helped others position themselves well. She always checked their breathing and posture. She always spoke clearly to command. And she always seemed to notice what tools were in the room, even if she did not touch them. In a sim where a minor coolant leak formed on the floor, sending a thin stream of bright fluid toward a drain, Paige guided Rel to lift their feet and sit on a bench while she made sure no one stepped in the liquid. She did not try to plug the leak, but she did call in a very clear description, including where the fluid was heading and how fast. Hale watched the replay later, pausing on the moment where Paige's gaze flicked from leak to drain to emergency absorbent packs sealed in a station near the wall. Her hand did not move toward them, yet she had clearly registered them. He felt torn in a quiet way. Part of him admired her awareness and calm. A student like this could decide in a slightly different sim that a small intervention was safe enough. From there, variables multiplied, randomness increased. Systems that expected passive subjects might misread her active choices. During the next class briefing, he addressed the whole group. Some of you come from cultures where taking direct action in the face of a hazard is seen as brave and good. He said, "Here, bravery lies in discipline. Goodness lies in obeying protocols that are designed by experts who have seen many more disasters than you have." His eyes did not linger on Paige, but she felt the words lay across her shoulders like a weight. She raised her hand anyway. "Sir," she said when he called on her back home, "we trained to take very small, safe actions, like assigning roles while we waited. One person calls, one person comforts, one person watches the environment. Is that allowed here?" Hale considered. "Assigning roles among yourselves, as long as those roles do not involve interacting with the hazard, may be acceptable," he said finally. "However, in most cases, your best role is to stay calm and visible to responders." "Thank you," Paige said. In the next sim, when the lights dimmed and the gear announced a sensor glitch, she quietly said to her team, "Mira, you talk to command. Rel, you stay focused on breathing and staying seated. I will watch the room for any changes and tell you if something shifts." They did exactly that. Mira's report to command was clear and steady. Rel's panic stayed low. Paige's eyes traced every surface for signs of worsening trouble. When the sim ended, Hale replayed the audio and video. No one had touched anything. No one had moved toward any control. Yet within the allowed box, Paige had begun to build a structure of her own. He found himself both uneasy and interested. Her approach was not chaos. It was calm, practiced, and clearly shaped by experience. It assumed that students could be a kind of resource rather than only potential problems. After class, as students were packing up, Hale stopped Paige with a small gesture. "Cadet Turner," he said, "your role assignment in the last sim was effective. It helped your team remain organized without causing interference." "Thank you, sir," Paige said. She met his eyes but kept her manner respectful, not challenging. "Remember," he continued, "your first duty is still to avoid contact with hazards. Any structure you add must never pull attention or bodies closer to danger." "I understand," she said. "On Earth we had a saying, 'Do not be the second emergency.' I am trying to stay inside that." The phrase caught his mind. "Do not be the second emergency." It matched his own doctrine in a clean way, yet her behavior carried more activity than he usually allowed. "Unusually focused for a civilian environment," he said. "Please do not assume that what is safe on Earth is safe here." "I will not assume," Paige replied softly. "I will observe. That is why I am here." Hale nodded once, then let her go. As she walked away, he watched the set of her shoulders and the simple, even way she stepped through the low gravity. She did not look like a thrill seeker or a hero in waiting. She looked like someone who had practiced being ready for a long time. Around them, the hazard lab powered down for the cycle, lights dimming to their default level. The sims had all been controlled and safe. No one had been hurt. Nothing unexpected had truly happened. And yet, in the space between do nothing and fix everything, something small was forming. Paige, with her calm Portland habits and her quiet human phrase about not being the second emergency, was standing right in that space. She did not know yet that soon, outside the lab, a minor real fault would press that space into full shape. Hale did not know that his carefully balanced avoidance model was about to be tested, not by recklessness, but by a different kind of safety he had never been taught. For now, the only sign of that future was a few lines in a human girl's notebook, a new word in the margins, and the steady way she looked at hazards without flinching or reaching. Risk for Paige had never been a thrill. It had always been a practice. The fault began as a number in a quiet room deep in Meridian's spine. A small pressure sensor in an access tunnel shifted from green to just barely lower than normal. The automatic system checked it against nearby sensors, saw a slight pattern, and told the central core. The core sent a command. Doors in 3 nearby sections slid shut in a smooth wave, sealing the area while tiny valves adjusted flow. Most of the station did not notice. Meridian was built to carry on while small problems corrected themselves in the background. Paige and her classmates were in the hazard lab again, finishing a drill about slow leaks and call timing, when the first sign reached them. Her earpiece clicked and played a clear tone that was not part of any sim. "Attention cadets, came the voice of Central Operations. Station maintenance event in progress. This is not a drill. All students are to shelter in place and await instructions. Repeat, shelter in place. This is not a drill. The lab lights shifted to a steady, cool color. Hale's head came up at once. Paige saw the change in his posture, the way his shoulders squared and his eyes sharpened. The safety technicians at the wall consoles put their hands on manual controls, ready to override any sim that might still be running. End all scenarios. Hale ordered. Lock down this section. Keep the cadets inside. The doors to the individual sim compartments slid open, and teams stepped out into the staging area, talking in low, anxious voices. Paige felt her heart pick up speed, but her breath stayed long and even, the way she had practiced for years. "What is happening?" Ral asked, their skin dimming with stress. "Something small," Mira said quickly. Though they did not know that for sure. The announcement said maintenance. If it were something worse, the message would be different. Hale raised his voice enough for everyone to hear. "Silence, please. This is a standard pressure maintenance event. There is no immediate danger in this zone. You will stay here until we receive the all clear. No one will leave without my order." The room grew still except for a few shuffles of feet and the faint hum of the air systems. Somewhere in the distance, too far to locate, there was a soft thump of doors closing in sequence. Paige's mind began to sort the situation the way her Portland drills had taught her. First question: are we in direct danger? Answer: no. According to both Hale and the station, air felt normal, gravity felt the same. No alarms were screaming. Second question: who might be in danger? Answer: unknown. The fault could be far away or nearby. Third question: what is our role here? That was where Meridian's rules and her Earth habits started to cross. Our role is to stay put, she told herself firmly. Right now, staying put is probably helping. It keeps corridors clear for responders. She looked around the hazard lab. Most of the cadets sat down on benches or on the floor, forming small groups by team. The technician spoke quietly to someone over their consoles, their faces serious but not panicked. Hale stood near the main door, listening to a direct channel in his ear. His skin had shifted to a slightly cooler shade, which Paige had learned meant he was under strain, but holding steady. Minutes passed. The room stayed quiet. Then Paige's earpiece clicked again. This time, the voice was not the calm, formal tone of Central Operations. It was higher, shaky, and much younger. Is this working?" the voice asked. "This is Cadet Leo Var, Junior Cohort, Section K7. I am in Corridor K7. 1, 2. The door sealed and will not open. The pressure read out is low. I think the others got through before it closed. I am alone. The intercom in the wall is not answering. If anyone hears this, please tell me what to do. Please." The words cut across whatever Hale had been about to say. Every cadet in the room froze. A few turned their heads as if they could see through the walls toward wherever K7 was. Paige felt a hard, clear feeling settle in her chest. It was not fear. It was something like a straight line, pointing from the voice to a set of possible actions. Hale spoke at once, his tone firm. "Cadet Var, this is Officer Instructor Hale Vi in Hazard Lab. You will stay where you are. Do not attempt to open any doors. Do you understand?" There was a pause, then the young voice came again. Thinner now. "Why, yes, sir. I am staying. The numbers say. They are down a bit from normal, but not a lot. My ears hurt a little. It feels I do not know how it feels. Wrong. Help is on the way," Hale said. "Operations has your location. They will reach you soon. Focus on slow breaths. You are not in open space. The SEALs are holding." He switched to a different channel then, one the students could not hear. The technicians leaned in. Paige watched his face, trying to read more from his eyes and the set of his jaw. Mira shifted closer to her and spoke in a low voice that sounded scared. They said, "7 is not very far from here on the map, I think." Paige nodded slightly. Her hand had already gone to her pocket, where she kept a small folded map she had printed when she arrived on station. She did not pull it out yet. She listened. Hale finished speaking on the private channel and turned back to the cadets. "Rescue personnel are already moving toward the fault zone," he said. "The student is stable. Our job is to stay clear and not add complications. That includes not using general channels unless you have direct new information." He looked around the room, letting his gaze rest on each cluster of students. When it reached Paige, it did not linger, but she felt the weight of it anyway. Her mind flashed through what she knew. A pressure drop could become serious if it kept going. The auto seals had closed to stop that, trapping the junior cadet in a small stretch of corridor. If responders were blocked by other sealed doors, they might take longer to reach that spot. She also knew that sometimes automatic doors stuck or misread signals. In the hazard lab they had seen that in a sim, but here it was real. She thought of the manual release handle in that sim, heavy and waiting. She tried to picture K7. 1-2. She had never been there, but she had walked K-ring corridors often to get between dormants and food level. They had manual releases every so many meters, marked by simple shapes, easy to recognize. "Stay put," she told herself again. "Let the system work. Do not be the second emergency." Across the room, Rel hugged their knees, eyes closed. Other students looked pale or restless. Hale moved to stand where everyone could see him, a solid point in the center of their fragile calm. Minutes stretched. No new public messages came. The only sounds were the low hum of systems and the small movements of anxious bodies. Then the young voice cut in again, thinner and harder to hear. "Cadet Var again." It said, "The numbers are still going down. I think slower, but they are lower than before. My ears hurt more. I am trying to breathe slow, but I feel lightheaded. If anyone can, please hurry. Paige's hand closed into a fist on her knee. Her pulse thumped in her ears. She knew that lightheaded feeling. She had felt it at altitude during a mountain training trip. It meant there was still air, but less than usual. Hale answered quickly, but this time there was a tightness in his voice. Cadet Var, stay seated if you can. Keep your head level. Do not shout. Help is close. He switched channels again. Low for the officers. One of the technicians' faces changed, eyes widening briefly before they forced calm back into place. Paige leaned closer to Mira. I need to know where K712 is, she said softly. Mira blinked. Paige, if you are thinking of leaving, I am thinking of knowing. Paige cut in the same soft tone. Knowing is not against the rules. She slid her folded map from her pocket and opened it on her lap, low and hidden from Hale's line of sight for the moment. The map was simple: rings, spokes, and section labels. She traced K-ring with a fingertip until she found K7. Her fingers slid along to the 12th hatch marker. Her heart sank a little. The corridor was only 2 sections away from the hazard lab ring access. A pair of doors and some stairs. It was close enough that, in a human city, she could have run there in a few minutes. Rescue units know that too, she told herself. They are probably already there. On the private channel, Hale's voice grew more tense. The technicians' hands moved in sharper motions over their controls. Paige could not hear the words, but she recognized the pattern from Earth response drills. Something was not matching the plan. The young voice came again, more faint. I am really dizzy now, Cadet Var said. The lights look strange. I am trying to stay awake. I think, if someone can open the door, please. The voice trailed off into a small, soft noise. Hale spoke, his tone suddenly sharper. Var, Cadet Var, answer. Tell me your status. Silence. He turned to the technician at his right. What is the pressure trend? He demanded in a low voice that still carried across the room. Slow drop continuing, the technician replied, eyes fixed on a display. The auto seal did not fully engage. But Prayas fixed on a display. The auto seal did not fully engage. There is a bleed around the edge. Remote override is not responding. Physical access is blocked by triple door locks on both sides. Engineering is rerouting, but it will take. How long? Hale snapped. 6 to 8 minutes minimum, the technician answered, lips pressed tight. If the estimates are right, that corridor will be at the edge of safe human pressure in 4 minutes. Paige felt time pull tight. Her Portland instructors' voices spoke in her mind. Clear as day, if a person can safely reduce harm, they should. Do not be the second emergency, but do not stand idle while someone becomes the first. She lifted her hand. Officer instructor, she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. Is K7 1-2 near this section. Every eye swung toward her. Hale looked at her as if he had almost forgotten. Then his gaze hardened with something like anger and fear, twisted together. "Yes," he said, "it is near. That does not concern you. You will remain here." "Sir," Paige said, "you said the fault is in the seal around the door. Does that mean the manual release near that door might let it move, enough for the auto seal to catch properly, without opening into vacuum?" Mira stared at her, Rel's glowing skin dimmed almost to dark. Hale's color cooled further. "This is not a simulation, Cadet Turner," he said. "Manual releases are not toys. Pulling the wrong one could cause a full breach." Paige nodded. "I understand," she said. "But you also just said that remote controls are not working and physical access is blocked. Someone has to go there in person anyway, right? Someone trained. Engineers are already moving," Hale said. "You are not trained for this level of intervention. I am trained for manual releases on Earth standard doors," Paige said quietly. "I have studied the cross-section diagrams for Meridian doors as well. I know the basic pattern. With clear instructions, I can be part of the system instead of dead weight." The word system brought a faint, bitter memory back to both of them. Her question from the first class. What if you are the system? The room felt even smaller now. Other cadets were staring between Hale and Paige, hardly breathing. For them, this was not just about a door. It was about what they had been told safety meant since they arrived. Hale looked torn cleanly in two. Part of him wanted to shout her down, to lock every cadet in this room until the all clear came. Another part, the part that knew the hard math of air and minutes, could not ignore the possibility that someone close by, with steady hands and some training, might help. He turned back to the technicians. "Is there any safe intervention from the local side?" he asked, his voice flat. "Any at all?" The older technician hesitated, then answered. "If a person reached the outer hatch, checked the pressure reading manual gauge, and if it was still above 50%, and if they only pulled the partial release to let the door seat fully without opening, then yes, that could improve the seal. But it requires careful judgment, and if they misread or overpulled, they could cause a catastrophic failure." Hale finished. His eyes closed for a heartbeat. Paige's mind ran the numbers. She did not know the units as well as on Earth, but she understood ratios. Over 50% pressure was still thick enough to breathe with effort. Below that, things became dangerous, fast. "Sir," she said softly, "on Earth we trained to treat that kind of action like walking on a narrow log. Slow, with a safety line, with someone skilled talking you through each step, not like a jump. You can stay on the channel and guide each move." Hale opened his eyes and looked at her. In that second, she saw more than rules. She saw a history of things gone wrong played out behind his gaze. He switched back to the private channel. "Status on Cadet Var?" he asked. Biosigns weak but present. Came a faint answer from operations. "Oxygen saturation dropping. We need that seal fixed or that cadet moved in the next 3 minutes. Hale looked at Paige again. She sat straight, her hands open on her knees. Not shaking, her breathing stayed measured. "This goes against everything we teach," he said quietly, so only she and the nearest students could hear. "If I let you go and you fail, I will have sent a child to die trying to fix what the system should have fixed." Paige met his eyes without flinching. "If we all sit here and that cadet dies in a small empty hall while help is 2 doors away," she said, her voice soft but clear, "we will have followed the rules and still failed. I do not want to break your systems. I want to be your long arm when your systems cannot reach that spot fast enough." Silence held for a long breath. Then Hale made a choice that would later be written into incident reports and training manuals in careful, cool language. In the moment, it felt like stepping off a known path into uncertain ground. Into uncertain ground, into uncertain ground. "Technician Marr," he said sharply, "open a route from this lab to corridor K710. Unlock the manual kit by that hatch. Maintain surveillance on Cadet Turner at all times. If her suit readings spike, seal her in." Mira's head snapped up. "Sir, request permission to accompany as support," they said at once. "I know that corridor's layout. I can carry the kit if needed." Rel stared at them both. Eyes huge, Hale hesitated only a second. "No contact with the hazard," he said to Mira. "You are there to assist the rescuer, not to act on the system." "Yes, sir," Mira said. Already standing, he fixed Paige with a steady look.